When are we starting him?
Are we here? Are we live?
We are live. Now, see, the thing is that I added new music to the countdown, and I'm like, okay, I'm counting it down for her, and then it goes down to 0, and I remember that there's like the music crescendos at 0, but then fades out like beautifully, and so, and I haven't tested it yet, so I'm like, and 0, and I'm like, oh wait, it's not really 0 because there's a little bit extra.
I don't know if anyone. I still don't know if anyone hears or sees us. I'm unsure. I don't know.
Hello to the nobody watching us. More calling Orson. Come in, Orson.
We try. Well, I've got some news later on in the show that hopefully will address the production value here a little bit.
Here's the production value. We're all a group of friends who really just love to, hack on politicians. So let's go about it that way.
I was going to say cis people, but sure, that too.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Transistance, your weekly news show covering items of interest that impact the transgender, non-binary, non-conforming, and intersex community. I am one of your co-hosts, Genevieve Bergman.
I am another co-host, Emily.
I'm Marla. I guess I'm a co-host.
Marla regularly brings the energy and excitement to this show, and that's why we love her and have her here.
I'm also dressed like a professional today.
Yeah, I think you definitely have that early 80s jazzercise professional going.
Listen, I literally was just complaining to my partner. I was like, I look like an 80s porn star. Like
I don't know about porn star, but if you have any problem with the Jennifer Grey comparison, then you're wearing the wrong outfit.
I'm dying to, because I've met her dad and I met him once, auditioned for him once, but not since transitioning. And with the places I've worked with, there's a good chance I could see him again. And I'm very curious to see if he would see it.
Well, we all do.
That would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would love if you did a video of that.
Does Marla do video things?
No,
No. Only if cat ears are involved in bad puns.
Not since the 80s in that special film market.
It was a quick callback, but it's still a callback. It still takes credit, and good job. Do you want to show off to the audience your wonderful rainbow shirt there? It's very gay, and
I hope I don't flash anybody.
The wonderful I've Got Anxiety shirt. Yay! Anxious people
Marla.
unite.
Yes.
Are you so professional that you're going pantsless tonight?
I have sweatpants on. I gotta kick it high enough. There they are.
Well, you said you were going to flash everybody, and you only pushed yourself up so high, and I'm like, dang, we've gone back to the beginning of COVID, and people not wearing
D's. There's like a huge gap here.
We're gonna get some side boob tonight. Sweet.
Yeah, we're gonna get some side boob, whatever that it means for me. I don't even.
Okay, so you guys get all of the, gamer dudes in here and let them know that, we actually have what they're looking for.
Yeah. And they don't even have to tell anyone about it.
You're getting a lot of love in chat for your shirt there.
Yeah. I was supposed to pull chat up on my other monitor and I never did it. Well.
Okay, we'll tell you what it says.
Okay, great.
It seems pretty on par with how the show started anyway, so you're right on.
Everything's on par with how the show started.
Sheesh. Okay. Let's go ahead and start the actual show here.
Oh, we're here for a show, aren't we? I forgot.
Yeah, unfortunately. We should probably get to work.
Okay, we're going to have to.
Well, we got to talk about some of this crap, and get it out there, kind of fight back against it. The Don't Say Gay bill passes Florida Senate, and heads to the governor's desk. What's that wonderful human DeSantis going to do with it now?
Everyone is pretty well leaning that he is going to give this approval. It is, I mean, there have been a lot of pushes by activist groups and companies to inform Governor DeSantis that this is a very, very bad idea, that this is being as hateful as you could possibly get without being Governor Abbott in Texas. So, everybody is looking at DeSantis right now to see if he's going to continue to push this. And right now, the propaganda engine is pushing out a counter narrative saying, no, this isn't about gay people. This is about parents' rights.
Oh, yeah.
And again, this is the propaganda of the organizations that are pushing this legislation, because if you go to their websites and you study them at all, you realize that these groups have as one of their primary motives and purposes the protection of the family. And so that is what they're talking about. But the Don't Say Gay bill, is now on the governor's desk. And really, this is where some of the problems are going to come in for DeSantis. This is really about eliminating the conversation. It is not actually bringing any substantive difference to a classroom setting, other than saying, if a comment about LGBTQ plus issues is raised, or sexual issues are raised, and they are addressed within the school system, whether that is a teacher or a coach or anybody else, at an age inappropriate level, then the school is then put in the crosshairs of anyone who wants to sue them for doing that. So, I mean, this is all a verbal witch hunt, is all this is. It's not actually defending the school. It's not actually providing for a healthier learning environment for youth and children from kindergarten through, let's say, junior high, because that's the catch. They all want to say, well, it's only K through 3. No, it isn't. It's K through 3 and age appropriate. Now, I don't know about you all. We didn't do this in my little rural school because folks were just a little bit embarrassed to talk about this stuff. But how many of y'all had that special day in school where all the boys went one way and all the girls went another way, and somebody was chosen or their name was drawn at random to talk about the differences between boys and girls and what boys need to be doing and what girls need to be doing? You see, all of that still needs to be addressed at some point, but what age did that happen typically?
I mean, no, I don't remember having that talk until actual sex ed in high school.
Right.
I don't remember that there being a specific talk about it. I mean, God knows when I was in Hebrew school, once you got to, I think, 5th grade, the sexes were split apart for most of the day.
Right.
I do even remember, I know we're getting off topic already, but I do even remember there's a prayer, a Jewish prayer that's said every day by only the boys that is essentially, thank God I'm not a woman. And I remember, God, here's more signs. I remember specifically being like, but do the girls have like an opposite version of that? And they were like, no. And I was like, but why?
Yeah.
I know that's off topic, but I don't remember any specific discussions until high school because it was all about sex.
Right.
Oh,
So
wow.
we sit, there's 4th grade, there's 6th grade, 6th or 7th grade for Emily. Like I said, we didn't even have it in our school because it was never age appropriate to talk about biological differences.
Mm-hmm. Well, because sex is inappropriate.
Sex is inappropriate. All of that's inappropriate. Now we have Oklahoma wanting to remove any material from the school systems that mention any sexual related content, and that includes health books that would be used to teach health and sexual education. So, this bill is going to eliminate the freedom to be able to educate children prior to high school, maybe even including high school, because all it takes is one parent going to the school and saying, my child is not old enough to be taught this information. That's all it requires to violate this law.
Well, and I mean, there's so many things, right? Like, why is this a law? Why isn't it a school policy? Why isn't it part of, the superintendent's job? And again, this is another piece of legislation that we're seeing that's just anti-trans and anti-LGBT for the sake of being anti-LGBT. Because again, it's not solving an issue. There hasn't been any proven cases where like it's been an issue. Nobody's, pulling out all the sex ed information for third graders. But it's just really disheartening when they're able to do this. It's it's marketing 101, right? You create a problem and then you solve it, and so you're the hero, and then whatever you're selling sells the best. It's just hard to deal with.
Yeah, Masochist over on TikTok says it's an election year, and that's the big thing. We're in an election cycle, and these people are pushing this agenda to protect children, to protect schools, to protect family rights. Look at the naming of all of these bills, which, by the way, I didn't have time to work it up, but we are in March. We have already surpassed in March the number of bills that were submitted in all of 2021.
That are anti-LGBT?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So we're looking at in 3 months, there have been more bills posted for debate in 2022 than in all of 2021. I think we had 137? I think that was the number last year.
I remember it being 130 something. I think you're right.
We're already at very close to 200 bills that are being debated.
I have a couple things. Oh, no. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, and that is in around 30 or 31 states.
Yeah. I have a couple of things I want to say. Number one is just get this one out of the way. Is this small government? Is this what they mean by small government?
Yeah.
Of course. Secondly, I do want to... I'm not saying that the person in chat is wrong by any means, but we cannot afford to be like, oh, they're just trying to use this as us as a scapegoat to win an election. Because then what happens when people are like, well, you didn't fulfill your promise? They'll go further. They'll promise something more the next time. They're pushing the needle. So like accepting it as like, oh, they're just trying to get votes. That is not going to turn out well for us, in my opinion. Yeah. Third of all, these parents and these schools and these politicians want to say that it's up to the parents, right, to teach their kids. Do I have to remind everyone that these are the same parents that couldn't handle their grade school children's homework during the pandemic? These are those same parents who are now turning around and like, let me explain the ins and outs of human sexuality and gender. Yes.
So I wanna insert a counter argument there, Marla.
Okay.
It wasn't during COVID, but my youngest child brought me their homework one night, and it was difficult, and I was trying to help them, and I couldn't. So Math is a thing that I don't do, but I can talk sex with the best of everybody. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the last thing I want to bring up is these people are now saying, they're like, well, it doesn't, they're saying, it doesn't really specify that it's gay only, or that, it includes heterosexuality. You know what then? I want every parent of a gay child, I want every gay parent couple, if their child comes home and the teacher mentions someone's mommy and daddy, I want you to sue the living shit out of them. See what happens when it's turned the other way.
yeah.
Because I'm telling you, if they think that it is going to be legal for them to do it for LGBTQ people, then it's also legal for LGBTQ people to turn around and say, here's your same medicine back at you.
Oh yeah. If marriage is talked about, if a teacher gets pregnant and has to take leave, you can't talk about why that teacher leaves.
Yeah.
Because that is sexual.
Yeah.
That
And
requires sexual education.
and let me tell you this. Guess what's going to get mentioned more in the classroom? Homosexuality or heterosexuality?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. And so, just think of all of those math word problems that are going to have to be reworded.
See, I am not getting that one. That one went right over my head.
So, little Timmy's mom gives him an orange. He gives half of the orange to his daddy.
Oh.
I was just thinking about
Didn't have any of those.
multiplication. Don't ever mention multiplication again.
Okay. Last thing to talk about regarding the Florida issue is that in a poll from ABC News and Ipsos, it's been discovered that 62% of Americans oppose this legislation. 62% of Americans directly oppose it, only 37% support it. But what is at stake here is that that was an American poll. We are looking at Florida. So if we see these polls and we examine what these polls, and they're saying, hey, look, this is what America says, we have to scale that back a little bit and say, okay, that's great. What does Florida say? What does Texas say? What does Idaho say? Because it's going to be the people in those states that put the pressure on the government to do the things that are right. And
I would
bring
think
back the pressure to do things that are wrong.
Yeah, and I would think that on top of that too is what do the people in Florida say? But then once it passes in Florida, what do the people in Texas say about that?
Right.
What do the people in Idaho say about it? Because a lot of these are set up as dominoes right now. That's one of the big things we're seeing with all of this legislation is they're trying to get it all in line so that if this one passes, it's more likely that these ones will pass as well.
Yeah.
And honestly, if these people are cis and hetero, even if they disagree with it, do you really think that this is the thing that's going to make them turn sides? No.
I don't know. I really don't.
Think so.
When it comes down to it, the things that makes people decide to take action have to have personal bearing.
Yeah.
So, Magnolia Cosplay over on TikTok says, as a teacher, we have a whole list now of topics we can't say and have to steer the kids from.
Well, you weren't here when I talked about the story, Jeannie, from Gilbert, Arizona, where my friend's kid came home with a permission slip for the home ec class because they were going to be talking about the parts of a chicken and the word breast might be involved. And they had to send home a permission slip for the child to be able to participate in that class. Like, this is the craziness that we're in right now.
I went back and I watched that piece because it was like, okay, first of all, Emily tries to keep me clean. So why in the hell is she talking about breasts on Transistance? So I had to go back and watch that. But yeah, sometimes it takes the opposite direction. It goes beyond what is reasonable and practical to actually apply within a normal context.
Well, and again, that's the whole point of small government, right? Limited laws, limited government, because the more of this stuff that you put out there, the more you have to enforce it. So the more people there are and all of this, and the more of these debates, so more stuff goes to court, and it's just more and more and more. And it's like, just like Marla said, I thought we were going for small government here. I thought that was y'all's whole point.
But see, that is the issue in how these bills are named and how the Republican small government party can push them through, because the name of the bill is not the Don't Say Gay bill, it is the Parental Rights Bill. And it is an argument to say we are taking the issue out of the hands of the school, which is a state institution, and we're putting that decision in the hands of the parents. So for them, it is making government smaller, because now the state board of education does not have to approve certain sexually related curriculum. Teachers do not have to have these conversations, so that frees up more time for the work that they're supposed to do, because this is not the work they're supposed to do. So it's actually in their minds, it is taking things away from an overburdened governmental run school system, and it's putting it back in the hands of the parents.
Jeannie, did you want to take a minute to talk about the article that was in between that was actually about, the fact checking of the bill? What's specifically in there? I saw that you included that article.
I didn't talk about that.
You did cover it?
I was talking about how it's not about the sex education material, that it's not about trying to create a safe environment to teach that. And that's when I was talking about the age appropriateness of the content. That's what they're wanting to do, is they're wanting to put a vague understanding of what age is appropriate to teach this material. And they can very easily, like I said, all it takes is one parent coming up and saying, my kid's not old enough to know that. And the law goes into effect.
We should mention, though, that DeSantis lied about it at a press conference.
What? A politician lied?
I know, right? He said it only affects K through 3rd, or whatever the hell number they put, which is bullshit. And he also said, didn't he call it an anti-grooming bill?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, of course, Republicans a day later were like, it's not an anti-grooming bill.
Yeah, you had the governor's press secretary come out and call it a grooming bill. And DeSantis picked up on that and said it was an anti-grooming bill.
Sick.
Yeah. You mean grooming bill? It's a grooming bill. On that note,
you know what I want to outlaw?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of grooming, let's outlaw onesies that say ladies man and stuff like that. Like, I'm just saying, the people who groom children for their sexuality are heterosexual people.
Marla, that seemed a very oddly specific
I'm just naming things.
Just pulling things out of thin air that are extremely detailed and specific.
No, I mean, did you see, what is their name? On TikTok, I can't think of their name, was covering, everyone had seen that video of that little boy dressed in the tuxedo with the flowers going, like, that's grooming. That's what grooming someone for a specific sexuality looks like.
Yeah, that, I saw that one.
Let's dive a little bit further into the Twilight Zone here. Idaho bill would jail librarians and teachers for LGBTQ plus books. This is something we've been talking about for a while. What's happening specifically in this article, Jeannie?
Much like in Oklahoma and the bills that they have there, the appropriately titled House Bill 666 passed through the House of Representatives in Idaho, which basically would say that, well, all it is it's an amendment to an existing law. And what it would do is it would remove it would amend the existing law to remove an exemption that protects libraries, schools, museums, colleges, and universities and their employees for disseminating material that is harmful to minors, according to the paper. The law doesn't define what is harmful to minors, and so it's wide open for interpretation by whoever wants it. The penalty is up to a year in jail or $1,000 fine. So you have essentially librarians and college professors and university professors being censored by the Idaho state government to protect children. But the last time I checked, colleges and universities enrolled adults. So I'm not sure how they're defining children in Idaho these days.
This is so many kinds of crazy.
Idaho one of those states that's 19 for being an adult? There's 3 states that it's the age of 19. I'm just making sure that, like,
yeah, I don't know.
I know it's Alabama? No, I don't remember. Anyway.
So Idaho also has a couple of other things that have come to light. I don't know. I can't confirm everything on this, but I do know that one of the issues that is currently rising out of Idaho is that if a parent attempts to take a child across state lines for gender-affirming care, the parents can be sent to prison with a penalty up to life imprisonment.
I don't see any way in which that is legal. There's no way that will hold up in a court, right?
No,
I mean, I don't want to take the fucking risk because I don't fucking trust anything at this point. But my God, does that like... I'm going to keep throwing the word around. I don't care anymore. It's fascism.
Mm-hmm.
So this may relate to the bill that I talked about last week, where Idaho has pushed a bill that says if anyone provides gender-affirming treatment to minors, they can be charged with a felony, and that the imprisonment is up to life imprisonment if found guilty. This may be an interpretation that if a parent goes outside of the state to seek gender-affirming care while remaining a resident of Idaho, they would then be in violation of the law directly. That the parents would, because they would be providing the care by taking the child somewhere else. Therefore, the parent could then be charged and, if found guilty, sentenced to life imprisonment just for getting their kids gender-affirming care.
I don't understand how this makes any sense in America. I mean, it just is blowing my mind. And I mean, you know, going back to the article itself, what's happening now in government by the quote unquote law and order party, the ones that are just shouting over and over again the Constitution and follow it and all this stuff, and small government, and then they're writing laws that just allow people just take the law out of it entirely and make it, you know, all civil lawsuits. And then they create laws like this where there's no law there. There's no detail in the law of what the law actually is, which means that it's up to whatever judge, whatever, you know, circumstances. There's, like Marla said, there's nothing you can believe in or understand to know what it is to do that's right and wrong.
Right.
And then
Well,
this thing
and
about like you
enforcing-
can't
Okay.
travel around the country. Like it's the United States of America. You don't need a passport to travel state to state. You can go state to state. Yeah, you can't bring alcohol and some drugs, but I mean, like otherwise, if you just go to a different state to do a medical procedure or whatever, I can't believe that they can make that illegal.
This is where interstate commerce will come into play, and interstate commerce is a very tricky subject. You hit on it when you mentioned alcohol. Interstate commerce, the trafficking of alcohol from one state to another became a very huge issue in the first half of the 20th century. And that was part of what was behind the Depression and the movement of alcohol from Canada into the US and then going into those states that even all the way up into the 50s and 60s, I still think that there were bootleggers bringing alcohol into dry states and making sure that alcohol was widely available. Because one state could declare it is illegal for you to have this substance. And if you are found with this substance, you can be held liable under the law. So if a state pushes through the law that says a child cannot receive gender affirming care, if anyone provides that gender affirming care, they can be charged. And so, like I said, as long as they remain a resident of Idaho, they are therefore liable for the law.
All right. Moving along. Let's go back to Florida, shall we?
Ew.
I mean, yeah, it's a good thing we're not taking a vote. The GOP.
So Emily just said on the Transverse in this episode of Transistance that this is not a democracy, that no one has a vote on what we talk about.
True. I never claimed the Transverse was a democracy. I just said America is.
You made that very clear, Your Highness. Oh, I said that out loud. Sorry.
Sheesh. Now, can I just point out really quick? It's Jeannie that grabs all these articles.
Your eminence? Eminence?
Eminence.
Wow. I feel attacked. Okay, so we're going back to Florida because of what Jeannie wanted to do. The GOP in Florida, Senator Ileana Garcia argues being LGBTQ plus is not permanent. Well, that's a relief that this is just temporary. This is just a fad then, right, Marla? This is something I heard that Marla got to watch her whole speech earlier and her head exploded.
I watched all 30 minutes of this speech to try and, because I might make, those TikToks I like making where I go back and forth between the video and myself making comments. I was thinking about doing it with this. I don't even know where to start because it was so stupid. Oh, well, Jeannie's talking, so I'll talk about it.
Okay.
So, the senator from Florida, for the Florida Senate, gave a speech on the floor about the Don't Say Gay bill, and in it, she said that LGBT is not permanent. However, she gave 3 examples. In every one of those examples, there was nothing that would suggest that it wasn't permanent. She began by talking about a trans woman that she knows. The entire time, she referred to them as a man and he, literally the entire time.
Okay.
And was basically saying well, they did all this stuff and they did all this transitioning and they did all the transitioning and they still liked women. And that's her proof that, does she know lesbians exist? That's her proof that LGBT doesn't exist. Is that this trans woman didn't suddenly become attracted to men. So therefore wasn't trans?
Therefore was only trans temporarily because, as we all know, being trans is a choice. And if you're...
But here's the thing. She was very specific at the beginning of this speech to make sure that everyone knew that she knew the difference between sexuality and gender, and then went on to prove the complete opposite.
Wow. That's a genius in the works for you.
There's still two more examples. Jeannie, you had your hand up, though.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm glad that mine is not temporary, because I went to all the trouble of becoming trans, and I like everybody. So mine's got to be real, because it's going to take a long ass time to get through everybody to find out if it's not real.
No, because according to this woman, unless you are in a relationship with someone of your opposite gender, it's not real. I'll continue so we can see where this starts to fall apart.
We're waiting for it to start to fall apart.
What the hell?
Her next example was someone she knew. I want to say it was a woman, if I remember correctly, who was dating someone of their same gender and was with them forever, years and years and years, and then broke up and married someone of the opposite gender. And that's proof that LGBT doesn't exist. As if bi people don't exist. As if the second a bi person has a heterosexual relationship, they're no longer bi.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you are attracted only to your opposite, or unless you are attracted to your opposite, it doesn't even make sense because it depends upon which gender you are in her situation. So
yeah,
none of it makes sense.
No.
Third one.
Well, and I just love in that she's then negating that cult that has a lot of pride in themselves, the Gold Star lesbians. Mm-hmm. That pride themselves on only being with women, and it's just like, but she's saying that even that's a fad.
Yeah, I like to tell TERFs that I'm a Gold Star lesbian. Number 3, she had the nerve, as she referred to them, the uncle of her son on her father's side. The uncle in this situation was an aunt, was a trans woman, who again she kept referring to as he.
Mm-hmm. Of course, yeah.
Brought up that one day that her son had been hanging out with this aunt and had one day come out of her room, the senator's room, wearing her heels. I want to say a dress, and was like, well, Uncle blah, blah, blah does this. And she had the nerve to tell her son, well, sometimes, your uncle likes to pretend. And then, to prove that this was not permanent, she said, well, and I'll use her words because she kept referring to them as he did all these things. He took all these hormones. He did this and this and this and this, and then didn't go the full length to becoming a full woman. Meaning this person didn't get bottom surgery, and therefore, according to her, no longer trans, not permanent. So this woman, how is this woman allowed to speak in the Senate of any state? I get it's Florida, but come the hell on.
But even that, like, I love that every time she made a point to back up her thing, she contradicted it in her point. So she was saying that
you're an idiot, though.
She was saying that this uncle wasn't really trans because they didn't, do bottom surgery. But that means that the ones that do are permanent and are valid. So you're shooting your own argument right in the ass. Right in the ass.
It was endless stupidity. I don't even know how to do a video of it because there's too much for me to go back and forth with her. And literally the entire video at this point is going to be she, and she.
Yeah. Wow. And I love that at the end of it, she turned out to be a trans medicalist. This is great.
Well, eventually that's what all of them are, is trans medicalist. Because they can't argue anything after a certain point because they know that, the law protects transgender women after they get their bottom surgery. And that's why everybody's so concerned about it. Because look, if they're going to betray their own gender, then they're really not even worth the, to the point of having the surgery, then they're not really worth the actual effort to try and stop them at that point.
Okay. Texas blocked from investigating transgender kids' parents for child abuse. Thank you, God. Jeannie, what's going on in this article?
Well, first of all, it wasn't God. It was a judge. So a Texas judge blocked the state from investigating child abuse claims that came out of a report of gender affirming care. This was broadening the previous injunction, the previous order that was challenged by the state. And so this really came down and put the hammer down and said, okay, you're not going to do this. You cannot do this, which just means that, of course, they're just going to push it up to a court of appeals. So as of the reporting of this, there had been 9 investigations that had been opened by DFPS.
Wow, for something that was said over and over again is not a law. There's no legal basis to this. There's no reason that this should be happening from a legal standpoint, period.
Yep. And there were still 9 cases opened for this specific reason. The thing is, okay, this was never about creating a binding law. It was about creating an environment where people cannot exist. There was an article in Pink News where a mother decided to leave the state of Texas so that she could protect her son from the healthcare. And what she came down to saying was, I would prefer to lose my home than to lose my child. And, that's the choice these families are having to deal with. It's like, do we, upset an entire life that we've built here, work and community and, civic involvement, just because a group of politicians decided to pass these bills to make the environment unsuitable? To go even farther, Ken Paxton has expanded his lawsuit against the Biden administration because the Biden administration had cracked down and said, look, there's going to be some things that happen here, and we're going to pull money from federal funding if you continue to do these things. And Paxton sued the government, and he's since expanded on these things to double down and make sure that that he makes the point that he has the right to make the laws in Texas.
Can we get some
Remember
like
when
can we get some like Russia level sanctions going against Texas right now? That would be
I love
great.
that. I mean, do you remember when Trump said we're going to pull money from sanctuary cities and all the Republicans went, "Yay!"
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is exactly what this is.
Hypocrisy, thy name is Republican.
But here is one of the things that's come out about these 9 investigations. One of them was actually an investigation of a parent whose child is now 18.
Oh,
Legally an adult, legally can pursue their own care, but the parent is still being investigated for what transpired before they were 18, which means that they are retroactively applying the law.
so even before the order.
Yeah, multiple years before the
Fuck
order.
that. Absolute what?
Yeah.
Fascism.
And she reported that the reason why the complaint was filed was because her ex-husband did not support her son.
Of course.
And he likely filed the report on her. But again, this is an 18-year-old adult, and therefore is outside of the purview of this law.
Go figure, when you tell people to start being informants for your little fascist, policies, this is what you get.
Yeah.
Texas has instituted their own version of the Hitler Youth, it sounds like.
And we have one more issue that has been a recurring issue, and that is the Steadfast Bible Church, which is, I think it's in it's in the north part of Dallas. I can't remember exactly. But the pastor of that church has been very vocally anti-LGBTQ+, and has basically come out and said that he cannot wait for LGBT plus people to go to hell, and that included the children in that statement.
Christian love.
Right?
How do they not see that this is exactly anti-Christian? How do they not see that? Like,
how deep into theology do you want me to go, Emily?
We're 15 minutes in.
Right? But that, I mean, again, this Texas bill was never about protecting children. It was about creating an environment that is hostile to transgender people. Period. End of story. All the facts are encapsulated in that one statement.
Yeah, and as you've said on this show many times, you keep bringing up the abortion bills and why they're so important, and it shows the exact same thing. It shows their roadmap for what we're going to do, are doing, and are going to do in the future against trans people. And that's, right. they set this groundwork against it, and then they just chip away. And they use those same type of things, the bounty hunter laws, these ambiguous laws that are based on things that you can't actually quantify and actually really solidify in a law, to keep it vague, and so people are always guessing. And then yeah, the main thing is to set out a campaign demonizing the other side.
So there's a couple of things in there that you said that I need to go back and touch base on. One of them is one of the new abortion laws that's being pushed right now in Missouri. That abortion law if it goes through, that anti-abortion law, if it goes through, it would deem abortions for ectopic pregnancies as illegal. Therefore, a woman who has or a trans man who has an ectopic pregnancy could not have an abortion. Now, if you don't understand what an ectopic pregnancy is, it is when the fertilized egg is in the fallopian tube. Typically, when an egg is fertilized and the process of developing a child begins, it is in the uterus. It's in the lining of the uterus. This actually happens within the fallopian tubes. If that fetus continues to develop, two things will happen. One, the child will not be viable because the fallopian tube is not designed to sustain an embryo. Two, if the embryo grows large enough, it will rupture the fallopian tube, therefore potentially killing the mother because she will bleed out internally.
Yeah.
When you stop and you figure out that this is a life-threatening situation, an ectopic pregnancy is considered an emergent situation that needs to be dealt with in a crisis mode. And this white, crusty man wants to put a bill in action that would stop that. That means that he does not value the life of women, period. Full stop. Now, tagging on to the bill from Idaho that would make gender-affirming care illegal for anyone under 18.
And for anyone crossing state lines.
Right? But it is not a huge skip nor jump to get to outlawing gender-affirming care completely in a state.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's being argued currently in Texas. What Ken Paxton is saying about the Biden administration is that the Biden administration, as a governmental entity, does not have the ability nor the authority to determine medical care procedures at all. But Ken Paxton is reserving the right in the state of Texas to support legislation which does exactly that. The government institution is supporting the authority to determine what is and is not an appropriate medical practice.
Yeah.
This is where the intersection of abortion and trans rights slams in together, because you have a state that has now come out and said the silent part out loud. They have said, we have the right to stop medical care for anyone that we choose.
I actually brought it up in a video that I'm posting tomorrow about this fascism and how that ties in. Briefly mention the ectopic pregnancy thing, because to me, and I'm going to use some cover words here because I know you're on TikTok Live, and I know what they did to my live when I mentioned certain names 2-3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, this whole ectopic pregnancy thing and the 6-week abortion ban in Texas being held up, and what are some other ones out there right now? People pushing for even in cases of rape. It sounds a lot like certain Italian dictators' battle for births, where basically it was like, no abortions by any means, no contraceptives of any means. Yeah, it just sounds a hell of a lot like that.
Yeah,
Full control over women what women's position is and how they will be treated.
Right. And now we have individuals who are arguing medical ethics is involved in this,
Mm-hmm.
that it is medically ethical to ban experimental care on anyone. Now, I did some research, and I'm going to say that there are some very questionable issues. There are things that do need to be studied more in depth when it comes to puberty blockers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not debating it. I am just stating the facts that there are some documented concerns of negative impact that we do need to take seriously when we talk to trans kids about using puberty blockers. None of us, unless we are endocrinologist trained, need to be talking to kids about that, but we do need to be cautioning them, just like we would caution one another as adults and say, look, whenever you start this, this is going to impact your body in such a way so that your disease profile does change. You are going to be susceptible to different things, and therefore you have to be aware of that. That is informed consent. Trans kids need to be made aware that puberty blockers do present possible negative adverse conditions. And so it needs to be a part of our conversation. But to carte blanche, completely remove care, arguing that the state has that right, they are putting themselves in a position that they don't want anyone to call them by name on.
Well, we've been talking about a lot of turfy type of stuff here, and a lot of troublesome stuff against
Are we
women.
about to move away from children?
We're going to move away
No.
from children, and you know, we were talking about the comparison between the abortion rights and trans rights and how those are slamming together. And I was thinking in my head how it's just sad that there is such a thing as TERFs who are anti-trans and claim to be feminists, because it's like, they're coming for all of us.
Yeah.
So it's important, like, to have each other's backs. So on that note, let's go to Uber Turf number 1 and talk about our nemesis, J.K. Rowling, who
hate every time her name comes up. I literally can't take it anymore.
right, yeah, and she's doing a good job of just putting herself out there, I guess. But what is she saying now? She said she attacks the reform bill that eases legal gender change, because that's something that she needs to fight against. Like, what the hell? What's going on here, Jeannie?
So first of all, Ms. Rowling is, I do believe, a citizen of Great Britain. The Reform Act that she is referencing is actually in Scotland, and therefore she has no direct input on the affairs of another government.
So this doesn't affect her in any way, period.
No.
At all. There's no, she's just weighing in to be hateful against more people.
Right. Now, we
You're a
did
great
talk
person.
about this certificate change that is being brought forward in Scotland, where it would make it easier for people to update their gender profile, and the evidence of gender dysphoria would no longer be needed. It could be self-reported. The age requirement would be lowered to 16. So, Ms. Rowling, in her infinite educated turf wisdom, said some groups have voiced concern that the proposals could erode women's sex-based rights and access to women-only spaces and services, including hospital wards and refuges. The law trying to pass in Scotland will harm the most vulnerable women in society, those seeking help after male violence, rape, and incarcerated women. Sorry, TikTok, this is educational. Didn't mean to say the bad word. Statistics show that imprisoned women are already far more likely to have been previously abused. So she is going back to her fundamental argument that transgender women, please note this, transgender women only are predators who are seeking to harm cisgender women.
There's only one cisgender woman that I would say that about.
So, Emily, you're going to get me in trouble. You're going to get you in trouble. You're going to get the whole freaking show in trouble. J.K. Rowling's one and only argument about the existence of transgender women is that transgender women are just pathological men who seek out opportunities to stalk women in women's safe spaces and then assault them. I mean, that's her entire argument. That's her entire justification for how transgender women exist.
JK, you're going to have to explain straight trans women to me then.
Well, and again, all of this, no evidence, nothing to back it. She's just gotten on this thing, and this is what she has to fight for some just absolutely bizarre reason. I get having misconceptions and saying incorrect things. I don't understand getting back out there and in front of things and saying it over and over again, and in instances that don't affect you at all. Like, I don't understand that. I'm really struggling.
And I think that, the ability to understand something is the ability to separate yourself from your own personal bias enough to see it from different perspectives. It's very, very hard. And this is one of the reasons why I disagree greatly with transgender activists, specifically transgender women activists, who try to argue you're keeping us out of women's spaces and we are women. That is an a priori argument that we've not established for all sides to be concerned. We can't all agree on that statement. And therefore, to make that argument, we only weaken our ability to push for our rights. We have to step back and we have to see, what are they saying so that we can counter that in the most effective way. So being able to step back from those positions that we hold personal is necessary.
What do you think about that statement, Marla? I think that runs kind of contrary to some of your beliefs. Not trying to stir up the pot. I'm not trying to pit anybody against each other. It's just I'm just saying, like, I think here on this panel we have differing opinions.
And let's just say this: I love Marla. I respect Marla. If Marla and I disagree on something, that does not destroy my love and respect for her and my friendship for her.
Same's ease. I don't know that I disagree that much, actually, because I think a lot of what I do, and people don't realize it, is when I go after a lot of topics, I go after them from the viewpoint of the TERFs, of the transphobes. I try to as much as I can, take out any emotion of, well, I'm trans and I just have the right to this. I'm trans and I can just, this is how I feel. I try to remove any of that and try to approach the argument from their direction and disprove their sentiments by going at it from the same direction.
Yeah.
That's important, yeah.
You have to be able to erode the argument. So J.K. Rowling hates transgender women because of her history. We can't argue against that. Period. Because of her history, something happened in her past that has created that connection. We can come out here with every argument possible to tell her that she is in the wrong. She's only going to double down and double down again because this is based on her personal worldview. This is something that was influenced by something in her life, and therefore we are not going to change her mind. What we have to be able to do is consider her influence.
Mm-hmm.
Consider who she is able to influence by her situation. Because that's the other side of the argument. JK's history is JK's history alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not often reported as happening in the history of transgender female expressions in history throughout the world.
Yeah.
That something impacted negatively. Yes. Do transgender women come out and then families get broken? Absolutely. But so do cisgender male and females take their alcohol or their drug abuse or any of their other issues to a certain level where the family breaks. It's the family dynamic that is broken. It's not transgender people who are broken.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why I'm just thinking about it now. Like, anytime someone tries to make the arguments that she makes, that, where she's using her own trauma at the hands of cis men to hurt trans women, which is, why don't you actually go after the people who you actually should be mad at, right? But instead of the usual argument, which a lot of people like to make, is, well, then you're mad at cis men, which is true. That's not going to change it because she doesn't see the difference. Right. I instead like to go at it from an argument of, okay, if that's the world you want to create, let me prove to you why that's such a very bad idea. Right. And I'll say things like, imagine if we normalize trans men in what we're going to now call the bio-female restroom.
Mm-hmm.
You are now creating an environment where there's a bunch of people who I'm sure you're going to be very uncomfortable with in the bathroom, even more so than trans women. And two, you're creating an environment where it is normal for someone with a beard and pecs and no breasts and a masculine build and a masculine voice to go into the bio-female restroom. You are literally making it easier for actual cis men, the people that you are afraid of, to do the thing that you're afraid of them doing. And that's the way I look at these arguments. You have to approach it from showing them how ridiculous their perspective is if it were actually enacted.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other problem that I have with this is that you've experienced a trauma. You've seen a thing one time. I think it's more than just a cis man. Isn't there something else that happened, like to a friend of hers or something, with someone who was trans or something? Isn't that where this is coming from? But regardless of it, we can do the history on that. What's that?
Rosa is saying there's something in her biography, something about her dad wanted a baby boy and all the stuff that he did and how she tried to live up to that or something. That's what Rosa said in the chat.
Oh, that was that thing where she said if it was possible, she would have chosen to be trans in the 70s or something, right? But regardless of that, that was something. Or there's so much about her story. It's great. It's very wrong and very flawed to take one example of one person doing something bad and take an entire category and saying that that entire group of people is bad. That's something that we're fighting against very strongly right now in the United States with the prison system and the fact that there are so many minorities that are in prison that are demonized. The you can't look at one situation and say all people in that group are that way. I just don't. I understand trauma and having to deal through that and all that, but I don't get how you can blame an entire group of people and say that all of them are like this, despite all of the evidence against what you're saying.
Yeah. This is also the primary method of arguing trans women in sports, because they take an exception, they conflate the details, and they make that the rule. And Marla does this better than anybody. She goes back and she brings out all the stuff and says, okay, here are the examples that you've named. Now let's talk about how you don't know what the facts are. And every time she does it, even though I've heard her do this, I don't know how many times, every time she does it, I listen to her, because she is making this argument. She is making it very clearly. Do not use the exception to determine the rule.
Mm-hmm. I'm also done talking about sports in general, by the way.
Okay.
I made that decision with the last one.
Yeah.
Because it has, one, it is distracting from the actual ridiculous garbage that's going on right now. The even worse stuff.
Yeah.
Two, the reason that we were able to get to this ridiculous garbage is because of things like the sports, demonizing us, dehumanizing us, lying about us, painting us as cheaters or fakers or whatever.
Right.
That's how we got here to begin with. And in the end, if these people are busy arguing fake points about Leah Thomas, I'm not going to let that distract me. Like, I'm going to say to them, this is what's happening in Texas, in Florida, because you kept pushing fake narratives about trans people. That's the only reason this was allowed to happen, is because you have bought into propaganda. Mm-hmm. I am not going to sit here disproving you. I have literally covered, I think, every goddamn trans athlete that can be covered. Could I go more into detail about them? Probably, but I have given enough counter arguments to all the consistent bullshit points they make that I can just tag you. Do not waste my time anymore with this. I have bigger fish to fry.
And that's the sad thing, is that 2 years ago, the transgender woman sport issue was the biggest thing we had to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
And now we are having to deal with gender affirming care being penalized to the same degree as homicide. All cops are mannered.
Can you not say that word on TikTok?
That acronym. Did you know you get flagged for that acronym?
Yep.
Huh. Yeah, I don't like that phrase either, because it again clumps, just makes a generalization. I think all of the training is bad. I think all of the mentality behind a lot of the stuff they're doing is bad, but I don't agree with that.
No, and going back to the issue that we're having to go back over and retread the basics, while there are more pressing issues currently happening. it takes away our energy. It takes away the things that we have to do. And sadly, I've reached that point where it's like, look, even talking isn't doing enough. Acting has to come into play now.
Yeah.
1 full year of legislation attacks. This has to stop because it is getting worse and worse with every new cycle of legislation. We thought that Texas was bad for trying to pass a bill that made having gender affirming care provided for your child illegal. We thought that was bad. Now we don't even have the law to fight against. All we have now is just public opinion. That's a monster we cannot fight, folks. With all of the words that we speak, we cannot fight that. Because people do not know who we are. They don't understand who we are. And they push and they push and they push this false narrative about transgender people that's easy to believe because fear in ignorance is easier to consume than knowledge in truth. We can't keep talking. We've got to start acting.
Getting into a big discussion in chat about the whole ACAB thing, and I don't know. It's a tough thing, and the reason, I mean, I don't know. I feel like kind of talking about it in a way because it's just like the saying statements like that, like demonizing an entire group, like we were just talking about on the other side. If you're using language that strong, it shuts down the conversation. I don't know. They're so adamant about their viewpoints that I don't know if there is much of a conversation and that there would be much of a chance to sway the opinion. But if you demonize them like that so strongly and just say you're all buttholes, then there is no conversation. When you start talking about, the defund the police, like, it's catchy as hell, and there is a lot of truth in that, but people hear it as shut down the police, and that shuts down the conversation. Whereas, we need reform, we need to fix what's going on, and so, like I said, I just try not. I resist that kind of language because of the fact that it just shuts down the conversation and any chance for fixing it with both sides. And I think the reason, the way that we're going to fix a lot of this stuff is by having involvement from both sides. Otherwise, it's just going to keep, the pendulum's just going to keep swinging back and forth to whoever's in power the most.
Yeah.
That's okay. Stepping off the soapbox.
And Emily, young lady, you need to watch your language.
What'd I miss?
You use them foul words like butthole. I mean, Emily, there's a standard on this show. You had better clean that mouth up right now.
I will accept nothing short of chocolate starfish from now on from you.
You scared the crap out of me. Because you get impassioned about something you're talking about, and I'm maybe talking more about you and me, Jeannie, maybe more just me, because I know Marla, like, she says she removes the passion and talks about facts. But sometimes when I get impassioned, it's really easy to feel like, wait, did I misstep there? Did I say the wrong thing? All of that. And so I thought you called me on something, and I was just like, oh crap, what did I say? Oh. Terrifying. Terrifying. Okay.
And that makes it all the richer.
Shall we get back on track, perhaps?
Do we have one?
Yeah, I was going to say, is that even possible?
We're an hour, 20 minutes in. I feel like we've done like 4 articles.
There were lots of things clumped together. I think Marla's kind of right there, but we've gone through several articles. We've been chunking through them within the same topic. So
yeah.
EU's generous response to Ukraine refugees shows another way is possible. What is this way that is possible, and how does this affect the trans community?
They sure painted this in a positive light. I want to say that first. Because when I read this article, I was like, you bastards.
Okay.
I'm just saying, they were like, you say the article, and then I'll explain why I was upset about the way that it's not the way that I looked at it.
Okay. So with the increased war in Ukraine right now, people are fleeing the country. Now, we know that LGBTQ plus people were identified within the Russian army as targets for hit squads and grab squads. We know that the Orthodox Church in Russia has blamed the LGBTQ plus people and quote unquote ideology for this war, that it is a sort of a cleansing of the immorality. So we know that LGBTQ plus people are leaving Ukraine. And there have been some places that have continued to put filters in place for LGBTQ plus people. But what the article is pointing out is the disparity between how the EU, the European Union, is handling the refugees from Ukraine compared to, over the last few decades, the very stringent rejection of refugees from other areas, specifically those from the Middle East and from Africa and from Asia. If those fleeing from Ukraine, which I was just speaking with someone from Poland over the weekend, and they were talking about how the population there is very homogeneous, that you do not have a great number of, you don't have a great breadth of racial diversity within those Eastern European countries. But what we are seeing is that the EU has been very open to accept white people, while at the same time making all of the exceptions for allowing those from Asia and Africa and the Middle East. And I point this out because we do have members of the EU who are also using those rules to prevent LGBTQ plus people from entering. So that's where that comes in. While it may seem like the EU is doing a great job of accepting refugees from Ukraine, the reality is that there is still a lot of work to change how refugees are being handled from everywhere and from every station in life.
Yeah, it's more about the poverty, the rejection of poverty a lot of times, isn't it? Than it is really as much of a race issue as it looks sometimes.
Yeah. That's still your thunder, Marla?
I just thought the article was very, the title got me a little bit, that it was just like, this is showing how we can do better. And to me, it was more like, wow, look how fucking shitty we did to other people when we didn't have to.
Yeah.
I saw someone do a TikTok the other day that was, I think this is their whole thing. It's like, can you tell the difference between these article titles and like it was like Syrian refugees are Syria like swarming European borders, and then it was like another one from another thing, and it was all the language was like we're being overrun by these people, and then the second that it got to Ukraine, it was like EU welcomes Ukrainian refugees with open arms. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I really wonder what the difference was.
Right. Yeah. Again, saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
Okay, moving back to the United States, we're going to New Jersey for the Supreme Court affirms that conversion therapy is fraud. Interesting.
Right.
What is this one saying, Jeannie?
Okay, so this is actually a case that's been around for 10 years. And it's been bouncing around to different courts and trying to get things kind of set up to kind of make things religiously accepted. There we go. That's the word I wanted. Fuck it. In this case, it was a group called Jews Offering New Alternatives for Healing, aka Jonah, which was a conversion therapy program for gay individuals. And the trial court back originally in 2015 ruled that Jonah had engaged in unconscionable business practices and that the state had violated, or that the group had violated the state's consumer fraud laws. There was a permanent injunction placed upon Jonah, and it was supposed to cease operations and then pay off the attorney's fees for the plaintiffs. However, Jonah did not cease and desist, and instead opened under a new name and continued to offer the same therapy. In 2019, a judge ordered enforcement of the permanent injunction and the settlement, and the group has continued to appeal and appeal and appeal to try to get to the point of, trying to get a more favorable solution to this. But, it's been basically determined that this is all through all of these different courts of appeals, and now all the way up to the New Jersey High Court, the New Jersey Supreme Court has said this is all fraud. Well, okay, Olive.
Well, what's crazy about that is I just had a dog barking in my background, and then it barked on Marla's screen, and I was like, wait, no, that shouldn't be the same.
So, it's like Olive, there are drug dogs, and there are cadaver dogs, and there are bomb dogs, and Olive's a fraud dog.
Fraud dog. You lied it, fraud dog.
Frodo. But anyway, the New Jersey Supreme Court has determined that conversion therapy, which has been deemed harmful and ineffective, is now a fraudulent practice under New Jersey state law.
Hallelujah. That's awesome.
Yeah. That is a good news.
Yeah.
Actually,
the 10 years is ridiculous, but whatever.
Good news. Do what, Amal?
No, I just reading the article, I was like, it took 10 years. They decided this essentially 10 years ago, and it took 10 years to actually get it done.
We've only been around for 6. Okay, so
Just
Laverne
wanted to.
Cox didn't get on time until 2015. So come on, Marla.
2 things. One, you said, Jeannie, this is a positive news stretch that we're on here. A couple positive articles. Awesome. That's perfect timing because we just got a big raid from, it looks like, Thanks Internet stream. They were looking for some LGBT plus content and they found our channel, and luckily they found it on tonight when we've got our news show going about LGBT news. We're a little over halfway through, but hopefully we've still got some good stuff for you. So we'll get back into it and move on to the next article. A bill to make medical insurers cover trans healthcare advances in Hawaii with near unanimous vote. Let's go. Jeannie, what's happening in this one?
Now, this is something new that we've heard. You have the Hawaiian House of Representatives, which is democratically controlled, passed a bill with only 2 representatives voting against it. And now it's going on to the Senate. This bill would prohibit health insurance, health maintenance organizations, and societies from making gender-affirming treatments a medical exception. That now is going to deem that these are not cosmetic services, but these are medically necessary. Great news, but because Jeannie found it, there has to be negative.
Oh, God damn it.
It will not go into effect until 2060.
Why so soon?
What?
Sheesh.
That's what it says in the article. I don't,
2060?
That's what the article says.
I mean, what is the rush? Jeez, like, slow down, Hawaii.
I was literally about to be like, this is not an excuse. Like, we're already saying Native Hawaiians don't want tourism. This is not your time to go do medical tourism. Doesn't matter. It's not for another almost 40 years.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that I was going to say. Now, before anybody really gets excited and decides, oh, cool, now I can change my residency to Hawaii and have my treatment, just realize this, that by 2060, the indigenous peoples of Hawaii will have effectively removed haoles from the islands. So, yeah, we can only hope that this bill will make its way across the Pacific and infect the west coast of the United States, much like spam did.
Did you see those spam fries that are going around TikTok? They look real good.
Ooh, I need to find those.
Yeah, cut spam into little things, batter, fry them.
Yeah.
Look, oh God, I love spam. Spam's great.
I love spam too. I don't know why people have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Now, I do like the low sodium because it does get a little salty. But so do I. So, there you go.
When I feel like I'm wasting our time, but when I did a production of Spam-A-Lot, they gave everyone in the cast spam, and a lot of people didn't want anything to do with it. And I was that one smart cast member who was like, we're barely getting paid. I'm cooking everything from scratch. I'm like keeping my bills as low as possible. So I took everyone's spam, and I made so many different spam meals. The number of times I made huevo spam churros, like just... spam omelets.
Nope, I can't do it. So I did go back. I did look at the original bill. The original bill does say effective July 1st, 2060.
Everyone's gonna have forgotten it by then. It's gonna hit that date, and someone's gonna be like, "Wasn't there a thing?" And someone's gonna be like, "No," and then it's never gonna be a thing. I don't know. It's ridiculous. Or do they think they just need that much time to set the medical care system up for it there? Because that seems ridiculous. It's not like we're that plentiful.
No, I don't know. I mean, the argument for that is ludicrous. It is an unreasonable amount of time. It was basically performative justice.
I just
But
wonder,
it is justice
Mm.
of a form.
Yeah. Well, and I also wonder if the reason it's 2060 is because they're just working on Hawaii time. Like they move slow there.
Where is this going?
Oh, she's already gone.
I'm just saying, you know, it's island time. They're chill there. That's the way it is. All right, let's get to a really confusing article here in who is opposing this. It's kind of blowing my mind. Florida church leaders beg Governor Ron DeSantis to veto deadly "Don't Say Gay" bill. Again, an article that Jeannie found, so there must be some dark side to this. But what's going on here, Jeannie?
I thought we were done with Florida.
Okay.
We're never
So-
done with Florida, Marla. Never.
This was religious because it's about the religious leaders. Actually, members of the LGBT affirming metropolitan community churches gathered outside of the state capitol and wanted to basically put before Governor DeSantis that there are Christians who will, who want this to be, vetoed. They want this to be overturned. So the pastors and members of the congregation, are trying to create an understanding that not all Christians are wanting to pass this bill.
Not all Christians are bastards.
Emily said something funny. Drop the streamers and the balloons.
Oh. This is outrageous. It's out. The rage is out. I've been attacked on a personal level. I've been attacked. Sheesh.
I just want to say
Mira.
that even though none of us can remember what the hell was said, Emily did get Marla a couple of weeks ago with something.
I
It
did
was
drop
something.
I
It
did drop
wasn't
something pretty harsh on
something.
Marla last a couple weeks ago.
But nobody can remember because it wasn't that funny.
You know what? I'm starting to feel better and better about that a secret announcement I got to make later. I'm just saying that. I've got an announcement for y'all later, and it's going to make perfect sense in this context now.
And it's our fault.
Yes. It is our fault. Mira, we all know that plenty of alcohol is basically just half of a non-beer.
What
Half of a no alcohol beer.
is...
Mira is a lightweight among lightweights.
Got it. There definitely wasn't Kahlua in my coffee during the show tonight.
Hey, Finn's here. All right. I feel like we were doing something.
Right. The Christians.
Oh. Yeah. So, the Metropolitan Community Churches was founded as an LGBT, basically a church for LGBT plus people. The original pastor was gay.
Mhm.
I think he has, I think he may have passed away, but this has been around for about 50 years, and it has been trying to be the first church group with a primary positive ministry to gays, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people. So they are trying to stand in the gap with, this situation of a very heavily Christian. Oh, Troy Perry is still alive. Okay, thank you, Finn. But they're trying to stand in that gap of a very heavily evangelical, conservative Christian push against the LGBT plus people. They're trying to stand in that gap and say, no, not all of us want it this way. And I think it is a wonderful and useful action that this church is trying to take. I just wish it was a larger group.
Mhm.
I'm gonna get canceled for this. I don't disagree that they should have done this by any means. I absolutely appreciate them for it. I do not see this swaying anybody. If you think so poorly of trans kids and just queer kids in general, you probably don't think very highly of this church, right?
Right.
So who are they swaying?
Right. And you are correct in that estimation.
Mm-hmm.
In the grand scheme of denominational pecking order, I guess you could say, this church does not represent a significant Christian influence within the American society. Therefore, it's not going to bring a lot of influence to what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
But, and here's where Jeannie brings a little bit of light side to this in her usual fashion. The Westboro Baptist Church wasn't very big either, yet their efforts became known around the world. So,
because of how inflammatory they were.
By how inflammatory, yes. I was going to say, if Westboro can do that by being hateful, by being ugly, by being nasty, what can a small organization such as this church do by being compassionate and caring and kind in the right ways?
I think they'll get attention from queer people and queer allies.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know hate sells, which is why people became entranced by watching Westboro, whether or not they agreed with them.
Right. And I think this is one of those dividing points where we're not going to find full agreement on this.
Yeah.
I think that it was more than performative justice. I think it was legitimate efforts to make a change. My thing is, we need more people to follow that example. We need more people to get out there and stand in that gap. And it can't just be trans people. It can't just be queer people. It has to be people, even though they don't have anything at stake. That's where the change has to come in. It has to be somebody taking that step and saying, look, I don't have anything at stake, but I also don't have anything to lose.
Mm-hmm.
I have this privilege. I can do something with it.
And I'm going to be honest, and I've been meaning to make a TikTok on this, and this isn't true for everybody, but I did not learn how important it is to use what privilege I have,
right,
until I lost some privilege by transitioning. So it is hard to get people to recognize not only the privilege they have, but how to use it.
Yeah. I've told people that from the very beginning, Marla, because I lost a lot of privilege when I made the transition. Do I still have it? Yes. And you and I both agree. We still have a significant privileged factor. All three of us do.
Mm-hmm.
We have that privilege of race. And we, white transgender individuals, have a responsibility to use that privilege to stand in that gap for our BIPOC trans siblings. It is necessary for us to use our whiteness because their voices are not going to be heard at a greater level than our voice.
Mm-hmm.
We still have a voice when it comes to being compared to our BIPOC trans siblings.
I do want to also, though, just make sure, just for people out there who might not know how to properly use that idea, that doesn't mean that you speak over trans people of color or people of color in general. You amplify their voices and you amplify their message.
Yes. Which means that when we go through our list of memorials and 80% of them are BIPOC people, we have to take a step back and say, we're not being murdered as frequently as our siblings. Our siblings know those statistics. They know how much risk they're at. They know that their average age of
Life expectancy.
lifespan is 35. They know all of that.
Mm-hmm.
What we have a responsibility to do is say, I am in a risk, but not nearly as great a risk as my siblings in these groups. We need to raise their message. We need to hold them up and say, listen to what they're talking about, because their existence is at the extreme end of what it means to be a transgender person.
Well, and all of
and
this,
more importantly than that,
mm-hmm.
just like with the abortion issue, Black women have been saying for years, the government is coming for your body.
Mm-hmm.
The BIPOC community has been saying for years, you are going to pay for this being a transgender person. So we have to work with BIPOC trans people for all of our sakes. And we do not want to be in the place where they are looking at us and say, forget you, white folk. We tried to tell you. Because that's what's happening now within the abortion movement.
Yeah. I mean, it's I almost feel very similarly. I was having this thought in the car today. The same sort of feelings towards cis gay members of our own community, where I'm just kind of like, we are telling you that they are coming for all of us. If you throw us under the bus, those of us who are straight, it's hard to know how a government will define straight for trans people under these circumstances, but there are trans people who don't show up to lead the way when gay rights are up for debate again, I would not be surprised.
Yeah.
Well, and this all points to something that Jeannie and I were really impassioned about when we started this whole thing. We started the Transverse, was including cis folks in our conversations, in our community, allowing cis allies to come in and be part of our chats and actually be part of the Transverse, because we saw that they will be one of the big advocate groups for us. It's the cis folks that are going to make other cis folks change their mind. Like you said about this article, Marla, the LGBT churches saying, let's go trans folks and against this Don't Say Gay bill. It's still us. It's when we can get the other side advocating for us that
it does not matter how many facts I give about a topic, right?
Yeah.
There's still people who are just going to go, no, this is made up because a trans person is saying it, so they have a reason to be making stuff up.
Exactly.
If a cis person laid out the same exact facts, they would be like, oh.
And so, yeah, and so that's about, using that privilege. And, that's the thing that makes the Transverse really unique. I've heard it a lot, that there aren't a lot of trans spaces that allow cis folks to come in. It's for safety of the community, and I understand that. But there's also a lot of opportunity there for, getting people educated and getting the word spread. And, that's why we love our cis allies that are here. So shout out to y'all.
All right, Twin. I knew you came in here with an agenda. I love you. You are my family, but I knew you had something to say the moment I saw you pop up in here. What is the Transverse specifically doing to include and encourage BIPOC creators and advocates to join?
Everything we
People
possibly
with positions of power, go!
Thanks, Marla. I didn't know you were a bus pusher.
So one of I can speak to this because I'm the one that's still in power in the Transverse. Thank you. Good question. Tough question, but a good one. We've recently added a couple, a group of content creators that are on Tuesday before my show, the Transgender Show, and a show called Keep Livin'. We were going to spin that out and have two shows, Keep Livin' and Black Queer Love, but we're kind of delaying that a bit because of the time that they have available. We are also registering as a nonprofit, and one of our key board members for the board of directors comes from one of our closest partners, which is Invisible Team Men, Invisible Men, and it's a BIPOC. It's BIPOC run, but it's a transgender male organization. And Lucky Alexander, who I interviewed on the Transgender Show, has agreed to be one of our board members. So we're definitely taking steps. It's a very high priority of mine, and we're just looking for the right, for the creators to come in, not the right creators, but we're looking for the people that can come in, and then we can expand out and have a greater balance of who is on our shows, who the content creators are, and who is in the organization itself to represent the true spectrum of who is under the transgender umbrella.
Yeah, and Rosa points out, Rosa has been here from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
She's been a voice for not diversity and inclusion. She's been a voice in building the Transverse. And by her presence, she does remind us of the experience that she has as a person of color who happens to be trans, because her issues are unique to our, are unique to her, and we don't understand them. And so she reminds us regularly what she faces is something we don't have to face here. Being Australian doesn't make it easier for her either, because she deals with the same kind of racism as American BIPOC people do. She just happens to be in Australia. I know, Twin.
Oh, I didn't feel attacked in any way, Twin. I think it's a great opportunity to talk about some of the things we're doing. Do I feel we're doing enough? Do I feel we've done enough up until this point? No, I don't. and it's really bugged me. There are a couple things that we have been trying to do that we haven't been successful at, and it kind of drives me nuts in a way. But yeah, you make a good point that having, Rose has been here from the very beginning, and we are really trying to bring in the diversity that, like I said, we're here to represent the entire trans umbrella, and it's important to make sure that we really do represent that in top down. So thank you for pointing that out. Shall we move on
One of the
to
reasons why I love Twin
what's that?
is that it's one of the reasons why I love Twin so much is that she reminds me to always be looking wider.
Mhm. Well,
Yes, dear.
it's kind of funny because one of our other great partners, Gender Meowster, said that they were really excited to see Marla on this show with the they them with the she they see the they pronoun finally represented on the Transverse, and I was just like, damn.
What's gonna happen to the day when I'm like, actually, it's just she? Because it just gets closer and closer every day. Then I'll be the Jewish member of the cast.
Okay.
Do we have other Jewish members?
No, I just think it's funny because we started the conversation. So does that mean that we're going to turn Valkyries into a Jew-woo group?
I was about to say I'm gonna start my own show. It's called What Would Jew-woo? What Would You Jew-woo? I don't.
So when we were talking pre-show, and I rolled my eyes way into the back of my head, hearing her Jew-woo gag, I still thought it was kind of fun, but I feel like y'all murdered the delivery. Like there's something really great there, and
No, you need to go watch my video. Like it was good delivery.
Yeah. I was very excited about it. We'll do it in take 2. We'll fix it in post.
So welcome in, Tier. Thank you very much.
I would say for those new members who are here, that the show has gone off the rails, and this, it's usually more professional than this, but it didn't go off the rails at any point today. It never got on the rails today.
Okay, wait, we're at the. I just want to say, before I feel like we're moving towards Emily's announcement. Before we get there, since we didn't get to it, I want to say one thing because I read a bunch of articles. Fuck you, Disney. And now Emily can do her thing.
No, now we've got to cover that.
And that was the next thing, and we're trying to get to. Are we gonna just go long, y'all?
Let's go long. Let's do this the long way.
Poor Marla's got to go to bed, but we need to cover this. Disney, why Disney? Why? Disney CEO says he's disappointed with Florida bill limiting LGBTQ discussion. Now, while that sounds like the right thing to say, we will get into here shortly in the follow-up articles just how that's a smokescreen against the horrible crap that Disney's doing right now, and it breaks my heart. Jeannie, or Marla, who's taking this one? Because I can't.
I think it's me.
Okay.
I hope I put these articles in the right order for this all to make sense.
Is this order with this one about him opposing the Florida bill, the first one you want to get into, or no?
I think we're okay so far.
Okay, cool. Well,
so
take
CEO,
it away.
Our co-chief executive, Bob Chapek, basically was like, basically said, "Oh, this thing's so bad, and I should have done better." And we were trying to work in the background with, Disney, and we didn't want to say too many things out loud, and we failed. We should have been louder. We should have been stronger. And now I'm gonna go talk to Ron DeSantis and see what I can do. First off, I would like to point out that Ron DeSantis's office claims that this is the first they've ever heard from him or Disney on this. So, while I don't trust DeSantis's office, I also don't trust Disney. So I really don't know who to believe on this one. But let's keep going article by article so we can put this picture together of just how not real and not sincere and not in good faith a lot of this crap is. What's the next one?
I have a thing here where my article.
The Human Rights Campaign.
Yep.
Was the next one.
So, yeah, that article died. Why don't you just go ahead and talk about it, Marla?
Yeah. So, the CEO, Chepek, offered, after all this uproar, offered to donate, I believe it was $5 million or part of it, of a $5 million pledge, to the Human Rights Campaign to help with efforts in stopping or removing this bill eventually. And the Human Rights Campaign, after finding out that Disney was not doing the things that they promised and not doing the work within themselves that they swore to be doing, which we're going to find out in later articles, the Human Rights Campaign said you can take your $5 million and shove it till we see you actually taking action against this bill and not just words. So the Human Rights Campaign saying we're not going to let you hand us money and say, look how good we did.
Well, and yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's great that they're standing up against that. Like, you can't cover this up by throwing money at it. Like, you have to actually do the work first. That's important. Okay. Are we moving to Pixar now?
Sure.
Okay. Pixar staff slams Disney for censoring LGBTQ plus representation from their movies. What has this revealed?
So, one of the biggest groups of people to call out Chepek has been employees of Disney. Chepek swore that Disney was about inclusion of LGBTQ people, and Pixar turned around and said, no. Here's what's been going on in the background. Every time we try to introduce inclusion of queer characters in any form, we get letters back from the top brass at Disney to very seriously scale them down. So Disney is taking away the creative license of Pixar to present queer characters and queer stories, despite claiming to be all for inclusion. And Pixar said, you're going to do so poor with this bill, we're going to blow up what it is you're doing.
Well, yeah, someone said in chat here that Turning Red was so good. They really liked it, but when they heard what Disney did to it, they were pissed, and I haven't heard this story, so I'll have to go look that up and see what Turning Red was supposed to be.
Also, any person, I haven't seen it yet, but any of you people who are out there like being like, this wasn't made for me, like, the xenophobia is showing through. Mm-hmm. Also, not everything has to be for you, but
yeah,
like, if you can't enjoy stories about other cultures, like, go inspect yourself.
Yeah. So as a backlash or as a result of the backlash to all this stuff, on top of the little bit of a cover up we should have done better, and throwing money at some of the places they should have been donating money to, and supporting the people they should have, Disney to pause the Florida political donations over law limiting the discussion. So now they're like, oh, we need to stop supporting these buttholes. And, a little too late, right, Marla?
Absolutely too late. Also,
And way too little.
way too little. Also, according to this article, it's all political donations in Florida. All,
Yep.
even the Democrats.
Yep.
I would assume, since it says all,
Yep.
as if they can't tell the difference.
That is what it is. It is. They will not contribute any political donations because that would be favoritism just as much as the other one was.
What is the point of giving money to politicians if it's not to give it to the ones with policies that you favor? I already know the answer. It's to vote for cuts for Disney, to bribe. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty much that simple. After Pixar and the employees, called Disney out for their actions, they said, okay, all donations stopped, even though they could have been giving them to people who are working to make this shit not happen. I should point out that Chapek said, again, I missed the mark in this case, but I am an ally you can count on and will be an outspoken champion for the protections. Bullshit written by one of his writers. I don't know what is.
This whole thing makes me sad, and it's getting sadder.
Yeah.
Let's look at what the actual board of directors did. So, we've talked about how bad the CEO was, and like some of these things about the donations and things like that. Let's see where it is in the board of directors that are overseeing all of this. The Disney board asks shareholders to reject human rights and anti-discrimination resolutions. There's a more scandal coming out. There are some clips that we'll show you here in the bottom of this article of the actual things that were said to vote against that were basically pro-LGBT or just at least anti-discrimination.
I mean, it's really just that simple. Despite what they're saying out front and saying that they're about inclusion and diversity and human rights, they're telling board directors to vote against things that would improve or at least investigate human rights. Among those things, I'm just going to read them out here. Shareholder proposal, if properly presented at the meeting, requesting a diligence report evaluating human rights impacts. They're against a report on evaluating human rights impacts. The next one, requesting a report on both median and adjusted pay gaps across race and gender. They don't want to look into if they are properly paying people equally based on race and gender. They want to ignore the problem or not let anyone see the problem. And lastly, requesting a workplace non-discrimination audit and report. Don't investigate us for discrimination. Don't report on it, because if we don't recognize the problem, it doesn't exist.
Oh, Disney. Oh.
And we can basically skip the last one because the last one's kind of like mixed in with all this.
Yeah, it's
he botched it, and he said he botched it.
Yeah, him apologizing, which you
yeah,
after he botched it, which you covered, so
yeah.
Oy. Oh, it's so sad. Jeannie, as my fellow Disney file, like.
Oh, it's me too.
Oh, really?
In case you didn't know that.
Mm.
And why do they have to own the Muppets? I love the Muppets. Can we just have the Muppets? Can I have the Muppets free of Disney?
Fortunately, no. So sad. All right, is that pretty much a show there?
I think it is.
All
I
right.
think you have things to say.
You have something to say.
I do. It's very unfortunate, but I'm sad to say I'm going to be stepping down from Transistance for a while. I've got a lot of stuff for the business, for the Transverse, for growing the Transverse that I need to focus on, and it pains me. I love doing this show. I love my co-hosts so much, but yeah, it's something I need to do for time. So I'm going to be stepping down from the show for the foreseeable future, and we'll be getting a producer on the back end to handle everything that I've been doing while I'm also on the show. And yeah, that's it. I'm going to be taking some time off from this and using that time to help us grow and focus on some other things that I need to do to get things set up so we can be a successful nonprofit and really start making the impact that we want to.
And understand that this is Transistance came about because Emily and I both had a passion to be able to tell the stories that we've been telling. And it has been a powerful experience to be able to sit here with you, sis, and banter and bounce off of each other, and also just share in this journey together. Damn it.
I wasn't expecting to cry. I was not expecting to cry.
I could always look forward to getting to see you every Monday, because we've gotten so far apart now, going our own directions. And I still love seeing your beautiful face every time you get on that screen 10 minutes before the show, putting your makeup on. But, my dear, I have loved you from the beginning. I will continue to love you. If I am not your biggest fan, or the person who will drive you as hard as I can to get you to be your best, then I want to know who that person is to make sure they're doing it right. Because I told you in the very beginning, I started this not because of who I am. I started this because of who you are. So, I'm still here to do that.
Well, and you two will still be here doing the show. And I mean, y'all are amazing. And I wouldn't think of stepping down from this if I didn't know that this show was going to be just as solid as it is now with me. So
now,
I love you both.
We also do need to make a slight announcement of a programming change.
Mm-hmm. To be able to accommodate this, yes.
Because of Emily stepping down, I will not be able to do Behind Open Doors immediately after Transistance, because I always left a little bit early if I had a guest to work off of. So we're going to be moving Behind Open Doors to a different night.
Still have all the great programming, just we have to shift that so that Jeannie can do both shows.
Right. So she's trying to get as much free labor out of me as possible.
That's what it's all about. Yeah.
The kind of person that I worked for. She is an empress and a slave driver.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. I never expected anybody to work harder than I did. So there you go.
Finn, you came on here for the first time, but she's not leaving. You can still catch Emily every Tuesday night on the Transgender Show.
Yeah, and then on once a month on Valkyries once a month on Builder's Block, and every Friday on Valkyries. And while I try not to swear on this show, I do not have the same do not hold back the same way on Fridays for Valkyries. So
You're not supposed to be swearing on this show.
Fuck that.
I just try not to. I just, I've got this view of professionalism on a couple of the shows that I'm on, and Valkyries is not one where I am very professional. So,
yeah, and she tried to, be a good example for me.
Yeah, the potty mouth comes out on Valkyries. You're right, Rosa.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I mean, we still have shows, almost every night of the week. We're going to have this show on Monday night. We have Transgender Show on Tuesday night. We have Builders Blocks every other Wednesday night, I think. Friday nights, Valkyries, all on the table on Saturdays, mini Saturdays. So we still have a lot of programming out there, y'all. The Transverse is not going anywhere as a media network. We're still right there.
No, in fact, we're doing the opposite, and that's going to require more of my time outside of being on camera. Well, okay, I've dried up. I'm feeling better. Y'all, thank you so much for... What'd you say?
Winnie, creepy bear. Somebody was telling me to give Winnie the eyes. No, Behind Open Doors is not happening tonight because we did go over. And the people...
Disney's fault.
The people that I wanted to have as a last-minute guest are here in the chat. So I don't know if they wanted to be guests or not. So I'm kind of floundering here. But no, we're not going to do Behind Open Doors tonight.
Okay. Yeah, I felt a little weird asking you that on air. It's like, this is something we should have covered, but it's all good.
We got it made.
All right, y'all. Great show. This was a lot of fun. Thank you all so much for raiding in. We had a double raid that came in, and it looks like a lot of those people stayed to check out what we're doing, and we really appreciate you being here. It's been a very active chat. Sorry we didn't get to be able to address it all. I was trying to here in text, but we love you all. Thank you all so much for coming, and catch the ladies every Monday for this show, and then, like she said, my show is tomorrow. The Transgender Show. We'll see you there.
Good night.